All aboard! Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, football fans of all ages, I am Beast Mike. You have now arrived in my train of thought. It's time to talk about week number 8. I can't believe we're already here. Let's talk about it. Let's get to business. It was good to see the Rams actually have a functioning offense again. It was good to see Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua both return and both have big days. Nacua had over 100 yards. Kupp scored a touchdown. But what was good for the Rams really was that their returns allowed Demarcus Robinson to absolutely shred the Viking defense because he was single covered all night long. And he had no choice but to be because of how good those two co-wide receiver ones were. Now for Minnesota, Justin Jefferson made a spectacular catch. For Minnesota, Kirk Cousins was able to keep up with the Rams for a lot of the game. Yet we get to the end, and the Rams are up 8. Minnesota's got to go the entire length of the field to score. And, of course, the face mask. And it was an obvious face mask to everybody except for the guy who could have made the biggest difference in calling said face mask infraction. Rams bleed the clock, win by 10 in a game that was probably closer than that, and really helped save the Rams season. As for the Vikings, you can't afford losses in a division of doom because a lot of the rest of the division will keep handling business, such as this Halloween movie that happened in Motown. This was not suitable for kids, for people in the state of Tennessee, or for ops of the Detroit Lions. This was a bludgeoning, a bloodbath, a massacre, and that was only the first half. And the fact that Jared Goff didn't even throw for 100 yards to make it happen is incredibly impressive. David Montgomery threw a touchdown pass. He ran for a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs had a long touchdown run. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Josh Reynolds and Sam Laporta, everybody who could have touched the football for the Detroit Lions absolutely proceeded to shred the Tennessee Titans. There were no need for memes. I don't know why a Titans fan would want to meme this. This was absolutely destruction on another level by a Lions team that seems to have a revenge tour and a vendetta against everyone. Their next op is going to be very, very keen on this. Green Bay. Let's talk about it. This was a really weird game. Yes, Jordan Love threw his obligatory NO because of course he did. And for a lot of this game, the Packers were in deep trouble. And this is before Jordan Love got hurt. Jacksonville's receiving core is in deep trouble because they got hurt. Brian Thomas has had a really good rookie year. He's out for a couple weeks. Christian Kirk's out for the year now with a broken collarbone. Devastating. For Trevor Lawrence, who was starting to really get it back together again. It's kind of unfortunate. He's also without Travis Etienne, but we already knew this. This was a pretty interesting game in the sense of how it kind of bogged itself down with Jacksonville having no weapons and the Packers not having Jordan Love for a decent amount of the second half. Xavier McKinney did get back on the turnover beat with another NO because he's been like that this year. And the Packers having a kicker that can bail them out at the very end of games is refreshing for Green Bay fans. Good win for the Packers. You needed it badly to keep up in the division of doom. How did the Bears do? We'll talk about that later. We'll stay in the AFC South and finish up that division with this. Anthony Richardson tapping out was a bad look. And the Colts still almost won. And it was almost because of the fumble recovery return by Zaire Franklin, who taking a Joe Mixon ball back to the crib. It didn't happen. It didn't count, of course. The knee was down, but it really could have changed everything about this game, including its perception. Where, yeah, we may clown Anthony Richardson for getting tired, but we wouldn't look at it that badly. Unfortunately, now we do. And not only was that bad, but almost dacking it at the very end of the game was also really bad. It didn't amount to anything because he was sacked on the next play to close the game out. Just not a great day to be Anthony Richardson, and not a great day for the Colts, who lost a golden opportunity to take the lead in a really mediocre AFC South. Houston, take your win and run. Kyle Pitts celebrated National Tight Ends Day, and he had a dominant day. And it's kind of ironic that he's the one that's celebrating it, or had one of the biggest days, because he's built not really like a tight end. But alas, he had a couple of long touchdowns against Tampa, one of which Antoine Winfield Jr. might have legitimately taken away from him. It just wasn't called as such. But This was a really good game for the Falcons and Kirk Cousins to shred the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense once again. And I'm going to give Baker Mayfield some credit. He actually kept up with Kirko and got the ball nicely to all the receivers that weren't Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. Kate Otten was good too on Sunday as well. But Baker Mayfield does deserve his props. He didn't go down without a fight. Unfortunately, he did go down. And now the Falcons have the NFC South in an absolute chokehold. It is a stranglehold for them because now you have 4 wins in the division. You still have a Panthers game left, and you still have a Saints game left, but both those teams look kind of bad. I'll talk about them later in this video, but the Falcons sweeping Tampa Bay really gives them a golden opportunity to really put some distance between themselves and the rest of this division due to Tampa Bay's health. I am a little disappointed in the Bengals, I'm not going to lie. I am very disappointed in what Cincinnati was able to put forth on their defense. They looked better in previous weeks, only to look like that. Although, maybe we should have seen it coming because they looked better against mediocre to bad teams and mediocre to bad offenses, and then ran into a very good one, and we saw the results. Jalen Hurts was very good. There's no denying this. There's no questioning this. That was a dime to Devontae Smith down the field. A gorgeous pass to really put distance between themselves and Cincinnati. Joe Burrow not being able to counter and not being able to answer, and the Bengals failing to finish things off on some critical 4th down opportunities. Huge deals. This was the first game this year where the Eagles won and Saquon Barkley wasn't a primary reason for it. This was Jalen Hurts, and that's very, very impressive for the Eagles. Their 5-2 has its warts, but it's a pretty good 5-2. And you can be in a lot worse spots than what the Eagles are in right now. Baltimore, you're going to have to explain this one. I get it. There's no Deshaun Watson, so you figure Cleveland is going to get a boost from this. Not just the fans, but maybe even the team, because let's face it, he's not good. But Baltimore, this is the second really, really bad loss. And it could have been avoided completely if you actually covered Cleveland's receivers. That would have been quite nice. Or if Kyle Hamilton would have caught that right before the go-ahead score that the Browns got with Jameis Winston throwing a wide-open touchdown pass. They didn't even have Amari Cooper for this game. That's the other part to keep in mind here. And it's just ugly to see that. You thought Derrick Henry had this game sewed up with a late touchdown, and this was before the Hamilton, drop, and then the next play was a wide-open tutty for Jameis Winston that he threw. It's just an ugly loss for the Ravens. And all 3 losses, to be honest, are very avoidable for Baltimore. They just didn't avoid them. And it's going to hurt them when it comes to seeding eventually. At least they have that tiebreaker over the Bills. That may come in handy later. Speaking of the Bills, we're now going to get to the AFC East portion of this video. First, the Dolphins and the Cardinals. And this was a good opportunity for Miami. Tua was back. You're back at home. Your offensive weapons are generally whole. All of them are basically around. Odell Beckham may still be on milk cartons. I don't know. But all of them are generally there. At least the ones as advertised. And then you got the Cardinals, who are coming off of a short week. They played the last game on Monday night, the last game of Week 7, and yet you lose anyway. And it wasn't, to me, any fault of, mostly any fault, because there was that safety. Wasn't much fault to the offense. They were up 2 scores. Even then, you got the safety, okay, cool. Cardinals get the tutty and the 2, okay, fine. Actually, they missed the 2. They didn't get the 2. They got the touchdown. They didn't get the 2. So Miami's up by 2. And then the Dolphins go right back down the field and score with relative ease again. And they're up 9. That's a thing the defense has to hold. The number 1 pass defense in the league, and this was the case going into this game, did not look anywhere close to it. 40-some-odd times, the Cardinals have tried to drop back the pass with Kyler Murray, and not even once did Miami sack him. They tried to blitz a lot to get to Kyler Murray and failed miserably in terms of getting to him. They couldn't get him, and Murray was able to run for chunk yardage. They couldn't get him, and Murray was able to throw it to Greg Dortch. They couldn't get him, and Murray was able to throw it to Trey McBride. They couldn't get him, and he was able to throw to Marvin Harrison, who is like that and did have his obligatory touchdown. This time it was in the 3rd quarter, not the 1st. But this is a really bad loss for the Dolphins because Just like the Colts game, it was completely avoidable. All it took was just finishing the little things. In this case, getting to Kyler Murray. Couldn't do it. And you kind of knew that when Arizona got the ball back at the end, and really especially when they got that running first down with Murray, you kind of figured it was done. And it was. Arizona shouldn't have won this game. And yet they did. And it will be very beneficial for the Cardinals, as I'll explain in a moment. So for months, I have argued that the New York Jets are not a good football team. I have tried to say that the Jets' ceiling is 8-9 and not making the playoffs, and Aaron Rodgers looking like Justin Verlander from the Mets. They're worse than all of these claims that I have described and bestowed upon them. They are really, really disorganized and dysfunctional, and that was before the Robert Saleh firing. The defense has gotten far worse. The offense looks okay at points, but looks stale at other points. Aaron Rodgers cannot move anymore, and that's kind of well known, and Patriots players are saying that he can't move anymore. It felt like when the Patriots got the ball back at the very end of this game, it felt inevitable that New England was going to win. It truly did. I never, on that last drive, even though it wasn't Drake May, it was Jacoby Brissett, it just felt like, yeah, the Jets are going to lose. Greg Zuerlein missing those kicks also helped in his thinking. And then Ramondre Stevenson doing his thing towards the end of the game absolutely helped think that, yeah, this is a wrap. This is over, and the Jets are going to lose in a very hilarious fashion. Not that calling 3 timeouts in the first quarter of this particular game is not hilarious enough. But, yeah, the Jets burned their last time out on the Patriots' last drive with Stevenson scoring and then getting the 2-point conversion, and pretty much sealed their fate. It was a wrap from there, and for some foolish reason, Rodgers did not throw the ball to the sideline. Super dumb and super done. That's what the Jets season is. After all of this, the Dolphins are the second best team in the AFC East, and that's with Tua being out for a month. This division is bad, and the Bills are going to probably win it by Armistice Day. Speaking of which, all the Bills had to do in Seattle was not crash the car, and they would win relatively easily against Seattle. They did not crash the car. And it was ugly because Seattle self-destructed in a similar yet different way than what Miami did when Miami played the Bills about a month and change ago. And ironically, it ended with the same exact score. That's the other part to this. So, Buffalo strikes first, scores first. Okay, cool. That's fine. Can Seattle answer? No, they've already punted on their first 2 drives. But they cause a punt, and then they drive again. Cool. Everything's looking pretty good. And then Seattle gets down to the 2. All right, sweet. Seattle could take the lead here. They did not. This is after the first NO of the year by Josh Allen. Josh Allen finally threw an NO this year. And instead of trying to pound the ball in with Kenneth Walker or Zach Charbonnet, they don't get in. It's a turnover on downs. Buffalo immediately scores, drives the length of the field, and gets a tutty. And instead of it being potentially 14-7 Seattle or even 10-7 Seattle, it's only 7-3 Buffalo. And it turns into a 14-point swing as Buffalo scores, makes it 14-3 right before the half. Buffalo then doubles up and makes it 17-3. And the game's effectively over from here. There was an NO right after that by Geno, at least thrown by Geno. And then Buffalo scores again. It's 24-3, and the rest of it's garbage time. And it's easy dub for Buffalo. And the Bills continue to stack up wins like a good team is supposed to do. Seattle lost a golden opportunity to take control of an NFC West that is begging for somebody to take it because nobody else has. As for Buffalo, your pursuit of the 1 seed continues. But can you actually catch the Chiefs? That's the real question here. Yes, they play each other in a couple of weeks, but for Buffalo to actually catch them, they're going to need some losses by Kansas City. This was a golden opportunity for one. The Raiders actually didn't play a terrible game. They actually had decent chances to take over and to win this game. They had a golden opportunity in the third quarter to tie the game or even take the lead if they're bold enough with an NO on Mahomes and a return to the Raiders, to the Chiefs' 1-yard line, I should say. 4 opportunities from the 1. Can you get in? The Raiders could not. And the 4th down was a demoralizing sack of Gardner Minshew. Kansas City holds, and not only that, they flip it right around and go get a touchdown to instead turn 20-20 to 27-13. And it felt like from there, the Raiders just weren't going to have enough time to catch up and make anything happen. Yes, Travis Kelce caught a touchdown. He actually looked really good and looked like the Travis Kelce that I think we're all used to seeing. It is National Tight Ends Day. I think he's supposed to do that. Anyway, the Raiders lose a game they probably had a real good chance to win. They just didn't capitalize enough of their opportunities to get it. So the Saints decided to remix a classic story and a classic phrase. If you can't beat them, join them, right? Well, New Orleans decided to say, if you can't beat them, beat them up. And they kind of went in a Bounty Gate type flow towards Justin Herbert, and it was kind of wild. I was not ready for it. I was not expecting for it, yet it happened. New Orleans could not score. This offense does not exist anymore, and that's saying something considering what it was when we left week 2 and when they left Dallas. They are now allergic to production, not named Alvin Kamara. The rest of it's just no bueno. It's just not working out for anybody else. Anyway, they could not carry out the hit on Justin Herbert. They could not carry out hits at all on Ladd McConkey, who was probably the one they should have targeted, because McConkey absolutely shredded the Saints defense and had a long touchdown catch later in this game that really put this game on ice, to be honest. At no point in the second half did it feel like the Chargers were actually going to lose this game, and it showed itself. The Chargers did their thing. They keep moving, they keep pushing, and suddenly they're back over 500 after what looked like a very ugly middle part of this season thus far. For New Orleans, yeah, you're not really bad, and you're 2-6, and it's not looking good for you going forward. Like I said before, Atlanta's got a stranglehold in this division. Poor Carolina. I really do feel bad for the Panthers. It's hard to continuously come up with ways to describe how terrible Carolina is. It really is. But it's just got to be said. They're just not good and not watchable for a lot of this game. They at least scored first in this one, which is fine. That's okay. But they just couldn't do much of anything else. And that's just disappointing. Bo Nix had to make sure he didn't make too many mistakes and he'd be fine, which is effectively what happened. The Broncos defense handled a lot of the rest. And Denver is suddenly looking like a pretty competent team. As for the Panthers, at least there's only a few more weeks left before they can go get Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward and then try not to ruin his career. At least for the sake of Carolina, I'll be doing the Bruins-Hurricanes game on Thursday on SiriusXM. At least there's that for the sake of Carolina. That's really more for Raleigh than Charlotte, but you get the idea. It's somewhere in Carolina. Now to the game of the day. At least we thought this would be the game of the day, to be honest. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels. We thought these two rookies would be electrifying against two mediocre defenses. I think the Bears are pretty good, but they've had their mediocre moments. And yet, that's not what we saw. Both defenses showed up and showed out and played well. The only person that could dent the scoreboard for a lot of this game was Austin Seabird. He basically tried to remix what he did against the Giants by hitting all those field goals. He hit 4 of them before the Bears could do anything, at least offensively in terms of getting points, where DeAndre Swift said, I got you, I'm going to do that. And this was deep in the third quarter when he did it. Long touchdown run, and then the actual missed field goal by Austin Seabird due to slacking, and things were looking pretty good for the Bears, who then drove down the field, and it looked like they were going to be able to put foot on throat of the Commanders until they decided to give the ball to an offensive lineman? Make that make sense, please. They didn't. They fumbled. The Commanders got it. It wasn't the 98-yard tutty that it looked like it was going to be. He was touchdown. So, no, it was a turnover at the worst possible time for Chicago. But fortunately, they were not punished for it. Good. Fine. He had the punt. All right. And then the Bears get the go-ahead score by giving the ball to a running back, which is what you're supposed to do at the 1-yard line, unless it's garbage time. And everything is looking good. You have 25 seconds to hold the lead. Can you do it? No, you could not. And not only did you not hold this lead, you lost it in one of the most hilarious ways possible. The play to Terry McLaurin and Jaden Daniels, the play that they made together, was a really good look. It was a good look to really set things up and to make sure that, okay, he's got a fighting chance, Daniels does, for this Hail Mary. And boy, was it a fighting chance. It didn't quite get to the end zone, but fortunately for him, it did not have to. Because Tyreek Stevenson was finished celebrating with the fans, and then he started to deflect the pass, which you should knock down, but he deflected it. And then it was caught by Noah Brown, who was the only person in the end zone, and the Commanders win a galvanizing game. The Bears lose a devastating one, and Chicago went from, they're going to be in first place, to, now all of a sudden they're last. That's the division of doom for you. Your 4-3 would win a lot of other divisions. Your 4-3 does not win this one. It gets you last place. Washington, with a signature win in a sense of opponent and in the sense of how it happened, and now your 6-2 is looking very good. There's still some showdowns with the Eagles coming up, and maybe even with Dallas if Dallas gets their act together, but the Commanders are in really good shape. And this is a sentence I don't think any of us would have thought of about 12 months ago. I mentioned those Cowboys. And this game with the Niners was a got to have it. You had to have this game. You had to close this deal. And it started out like most Cowboys-Niners games start out lately. Dallas sluggish. Dallas makes mistakes. They punt the ball or turn over the ball. The Niners strike first. It's a common occurrence for most Cowboy-Niner games in the last few years. And then Dallas kind of got their act together. They score, and they score again. And now it's 10-3. Things are looking good. They give up a field goal. Okay, fine, but you're winning at the half. Moments later, you were not winning as we got midway through the third quarter. Touchdown, by Dak, touchdown, punt, touchdown. It's 27-10. It's looking like, this is going to be similar to a lot of Cowboy-Niner games that we've seen recently, where the Niners basically bully and punish them, even though they don't have their full allotment of bullies. But then the Niners started to self-destruct. The Cowboys got 2 tutties for CeeDee Lamb, and they almost got a pick 6 because Brock Purdy threw it right to a defensive lineman. Dude just couldn't catch it. And now it's, you got to have it drive. It's 30-24. Niners are winning. Dak's got the ball, though. I didn't like that the third timeout was burned so casually when the Niners had the ball, but okay, cool. Dak's got the rock. It's 4-down territory, number 4 on the jersey, and he goes 4-and-out with 4 straight incompletions. Not great for Dak or for the Cowboys. The Niners salted away with a first down 3 plays later, and now 4 is the number of losses that the Cowboys have on the season. Their season, I don't think, is completely dead because their division's not completely dead, and they got the Commanders and the Eagles twice, but it's not looking good for the Cowboys. It's not a really good spot for them to be in. As for the Niners, it's a win they had to have considering their division is now jammed up and crumbled up. How do I know this? There's a lot of 4s in terms of the NFC West. Each team has 4 losses. Only the Rams have had a bye, which is why they have 3. This division is going to be absolutely insane going forward. The Niners are already 1-2 in said division because they own Seattle, and this is going to be an insane last month and change in the NFC West. And then Monday Night Football happens, and simultaneously, Game 3 of the World Series happens. So New York maybe have had to choose. Do you choose to sacrifice the Giants? Do you choose to sacrifice the Yankees? The answer? No. They did not choose. They could not choose. Yankees could not stop throwing fastballs to Freddie Freeman. This is a terrible life choice. I do not recommend it. And yet they did it anyway, and Freeman hit a bomb. And then the Steelers and Giants traded field goals. So there was a considerable amount of time, real time, actual time, where the Giants had points, and the Dodgers had runs, and the Steelers had points, and the Yankees didn't. This time lasted for basically the entire game, where all these teams that weren't in pinstripes were scoring, and the Steelers were scoring on offense and on special teams. They even had a score taken away from them because George Pickens absolutely caught a touchdown pass and it was wiped away because he didn't control it or something. I don't get why that was taken away. But anyway, it looked like a touchdown. It smelled like a touchdown, and yet it's an incompletion. somebody playing against George Pickens in fantasy, I guess. Anyway, Giants actually hung in this game. They actually made decent plays in the first half. There were some drops by Malik Neighbors, though, one of which probably cost people some fantasy matchups. And it looked like, okay, the Giants might have a golden opportunity. The Giants even scored a touchdown in the second half of this game. And for some stupid reason, they decided to go for two. And it was maybe the most hilarious two-point conversion attempt we've ever seen. I hope that they weren't supposed to snap it and things just went really, really bad, really, really fast. But even after all of this, both teams traded those tutties, both teams traded those field goals, and okay, the Giants are down by 8. And then they get a golden opportunity off a strip sack. And good peanut punch. Giants got the ball inside the Steelers' 35-yard line. Everything is looking pretty interesting. Now you're going to have to go for two. Hopefully it's something smarter than what you just did. And you could tie the game. Except TJ Watt says you will not do such a thing. And TJ Watt says, I got to have the ball and I got to have it now. So he took it. What a heist. Yoink. Simpsons Monday Night Football. I'm so looking forward to this. Anyway, the Giants defense, sturdy, stands tall. They force a punt. So now you got one last shot. Daniel Jones, you got a second chance for a legacy drive. And you throw a pick. Daniel Jones be Daniel Jones. It's just what it is. Steelers take this win and sprint. Not like the former phone company, but sprint home to watch the Dodgers-Yankees Game 3, where the Dodgers closed that out. And now the Brotherhood of the Traveling Brooms has to make the trip to New York City, and most notably the Bronx, for tonight's Game 4 between the Yankees and the Dodgers. They will be getting some slices, possibly in Manhattan, and they get a dollar cab and or the 4 train to Yankee Stadium to go see a potential World Series championship win for the Dodgers. And I'm very sure that 20 years later, Dave Roberts is not trying to be a part of a team that got reverse swept after being the catalyst for the reverse sweep that the Yankees suffered by his Red Sox en route to Boston winning 8 straight games to win their first World Series in 86 years. And that is the final stop of this train of thoughts. Overall, I was 8-8 in my football picks. I'm looking good with the baseball, but 8-8 with the football picks in week 8, so kind of appropriate. And 73-50 overall in my picking. Power rankings coming tomorrow. Who's in what tier? What theme will I pick? Find out tomorrow when I put everything in place. Carolina, unfortunately, you already know what time it is. You're going to be the first stop of my next train of thought.